As the Elisarian forces continued to pelt the Dark Queen's armies with arrows from atop the city walls, a strange sound rose above the din of combat, which gave every soldier within earshot pause. A heavy rattling sound and a creaking like some enormous door being opened.
"It is the front gate! They are opening the front gate!"
Troops standing guard below shrank backward upon seeing the wooden doors opening toward them. Within moments, the gap between the doors was a writhing mess of grasping undead hands as the Queen's forces surged forward. After killing the guards he had attempted to fool, Kelderic blinked the sweat out of his eyes, attempted to crank the winch, and opened the gate. He paused and listened. He could hear footfalls behind him. He leaped out of the way just as Sir James' sword came down.
"Kelderic! The very same!"
The two men clashed, each one demonstrating his prowess as a gifted swordsman. Sir James slashed in broad, violent swings with his greatsword, and Kelderic took quick strikes with a dagger in one hand and a sword stolen from a hapless dead soldier in the other. It was a true stalemate. More Elisarian soldiers streamed into the room. For the first time in ages, something like fear flashed in Kelderic's eyes as he saw the odds were stacked against him. He glanced sideways at an open window.
"For too long you have been a scourge upon this earth. I will purge you from it. Not today."
In one swift motion, Kelderic ducked and rolled out of Sir James' attack range and leaped out the open window.
"After him!"
Sir James ran to the winch. He strained to try and close the gate.
It will not close!"
Several soldiers ran to his aid and attempted to crank the winch, but it would not turn. The heavy wooden doors creaked and groaned against the pressure, attempting to close with the weight of an army pushing against them. Undead wedged their bodies into the gap between the doors, allowing themselves to be crushed to prevent the gate from closing.
"We must push! Men, push!"
Elisarian troops rushed the gate and thrust themselves against the doors with their own might. The soldier who led the charge was nearest the gap. A dozen rotting hands reached for him and grabbed hold, pulling him through the opening. The Dark Queen watched with sinister pleasure as her forces descended on the vulnerable gate. Reginald approached.
"We are nearly through, my queen. Our forces will soon storm the streets of the capital."
It's a pity. I must be off when things are getting so interesting.
"You're leaving?"
Only for a short while. There is a matter I must attend to. I know I will leave our forces in capable command until I return.
She pointed at the slack-jawed, eyeless face of the man who knew the way.
You, come with me.
"Yes, my queen."
I will need a water at the obelisk.
The queen climbed up onto her large skeletal deer, and the man who knew the way clambered on behind her. The deer sent up a haunting, ethereal cry. It leaped and bounded deeper into the woods. Reginald watched them until they were out of sight, and then turned back toward the ongoing assault.
It was terrifying to see firsthand how quickly the tide of battle could turn. Only moments ago, the onslaught of the Dark Queen's forces seemed futile, with every effort to scale the wall easily thwarted. With our gate partially compromised, doom felt like a real possibility. I gazed over the city towards the palace, and a vision flashed before me. I saw a stormy night illuminated by the bright blaze of thousands of fires spreading across the city. I blinked the vision away. Nearby, Aldrich conferred with his men. I could hear his raised voice.
We must close the gate. Any men we can spare must push.
All at once, the fighting quieted down as another sound rose. It was a distant, resonant, booming sound drawing closer. I listened to trees in the woods being snapped and shattered as if they were sticks. The booming sounds grew louder, and fear shot through me as I realized that they were approaching footsteps. Henry rushed to my side.
It is the giant!
The tree line exploded outward as a 20-foot-tall beast emerged into the open. It threw its head back and roared with a mouthful of multiple rows of jagged teeth. Its massive fists beat the mottled, discolored skin of its bare chest. It had only one remaining eye, and fixed its red, glowing gaze on the front gate. It sprinted towards it. The creature barreled through the forces of the undead, crushing and knocking them aside, heedless of any damage it might cause.
Stop the giant! Loose all your arrows! Take it down! Now!
The creature was riddled with arrows in a second, but its progress did not cease. It was nearly at the gate. My fingers tingled and crackled with frigid magic. I launched a series of icy blasts at the monstrosity, but it moved too quickly and my spells shot harmlessly through the air behind it. The beast reached the gate. I held my breath, knowing at that moment that our situation was about to turn much, much worse. A gut-wrenching smash echoed through the air. The giant had succeeded in breaching the gate. Elisarian troops cried out in terror as undead forces, led by the towering monster, flooded in.
Oscar and Cedrica paused their march through the woods.
What the devil is that?
It's the giant.
May the gods help them to bring it down swiftly.
They walked on and soon entered a patch of dead trees.
It is a relief to have some change of scenery. My eyes are bleary with all the greenery we've had to look at.
I suppose, but I do not like the look of these trees. It's strange to see so many dead in one place. The effect's unnerving.
Perhaps there was a fire or some disease.
A branch rattled somewhere nearby. Oscar and Cedrica both whirled around at the sound, expecting to see some foe, but all they could see were more dead trees.
It could be some wildlife.
Do you truly believe that?
No.
Stay close.
The branches came alive, ensnared Cedrica, and dragged her away from Oscar. He took a step to pursue, but found he, too, was ensnared. The branches moved quickly, but Cedrica and Oscar were quicker. Cedrica slashed through the branches which held her and sprang to her feet again. Oscar cut the vines and dead wood which gripped him. More reached out, and he hacked them to pieces with his sword. Oscar pointed toward the green, verdant tree line 100 yards away.
The dead trees are under her control! Head for the greenery!
The two knights dashed toward the trees, tripping and falling as dead trees clawed at them. Cedrica and Oscar converged on each other and burst into the lush foliage of the tree line. The dead trees stretched toward them, but the knights were out of reach.
So, you're saying that you're sick of seeing green?
Oh, shut up.
Duke Elegy weaved through the throng of bandits and undead soldiers pushing into the capital. He crossed through the splintered gates, marveling at the damage the giant had done.
The Dark Queen will need a new set of doors once she's finished conquering this place.
As he entered the capital, he listened to the sounds of chaos around him. He gazed up at the inner side of the city wall and spied Bronwyn, along with Aldrich and Henry, descending the stairs. He smiled and forced his way through the crowd toward them.
The Dark Queen's army poured in through the open gate, and our troops charged forth to meet them. I hurried down the steps of the wall, anxious to get back to ground level so that I might aid our forces in driving back the dead. Henry trailed close behind me, as did Aldrich. I glanced at the sea of rotting faces and surly bandits with their green bandanas. I blinked with shock. There, in the midst of it all, was Duke Elegy. He was slowly making his way towards us. Elegy! Pointed.
Where?
At that moment, one of our lines broke, allowing a torrent of undead to stream down the narrow street towards us. I waved my hands in front of us, erecting an ice wall. The dead thing's feet against the ice. Aldrich and Henry slashed and decapitated any that were quick enough to mount the 6-foot wall. The ice began to crack under the pressure of the forces pushing up against it. Still, it had bought us enough time for a retinue of troops to form upon us, ready to meet the horde.
They're coming through.
The wall collapsed, and the foul creatures lunged at us. I could smell the rot on their breath as I swung my frost-infused blade. Undead creatures fell before me one by one, shattering into crystals. I stole another glance in the direction where I had seen Duke Elegy, but he had disappeared in the fray. Beside me, Aldrich fought with awe-striking ferocity, even managing to drive the Queen's soldiers back, if only a few feet.
Forward, men! Put them on their heels!
I turned to my other side and watched Henry putting up a valiant fight. His injured arm, however, greatly impacted his dexterity, and his sword strokes lacked their usual power. I inched closer to him, hoping to offer additional protection. Our eyes met before the world around me fogged over. Suddenly, I was standing near tombstones. It was a place I recognized from a previous vision. I saw a woman with her back to me, her head bowed. A little boy held her hand. I could hear the woman muttering, "I'm sorry. Sorry I could not save you." I recognized the voice as my own.
Protect the Queen! Protect the Queen!
I stirred, remembering at once where I was. Soldiers formed a circle around me as rotting hands brought down a series of sword strokes, attempting to strike me. I focused my magic and sent a blast of frozen wind out at the walking corpses, sending them reeling backward. Henry came to me, worry in his eyes.
Are you all right, my Queen?
It took me a moment to shake off the residual effects from my vision. "Yes, I'm fine, you?" He nodded. We both turned back toward the horde, which charged at us once more.
Rose gazed out a window, staring at the vast expanse of the Dark Queen's domain. She wondered, had the sorceress created this haunting place, or had she merely found and claimed it? If the latter was true, was it then possible that there were stranger, even more frightening beings lurking in the otherworldly moorlands that stretched as far as the eye could see? Rose pulled her eyes away from the window and watched her child, Isidore, playing on her bed. He held a hairbrush in one hand and a comb in the other, mumbling to himself, pretending the two objects could talk to each other.
I am stronger. No, I am stronger.
He was so engrossed in play, he seemed to have forgotten Rose's presence. She smiled, and then a sadness overtook her. To think that she might have known this child, had circumstances been different. But could she not make up for lost time? He was here now, in her care. She moved towards him, wanting to play alongside the toddler. But a cold hand fell upon her shoulder. She turned around and saw the Dark Queen had slipped in, quite unnoticed.
My. You are looking much better than when I last saw you.
She gestured towards Rose's face and hair, the beauty restored with the aid of a magical stone.
Thank you, my queen. I would like a word with you, if you would be so kind.
It was framed like a request, but Rose knew better. She stepped back toward the window and sat upon the sill. The queen stood between her and Isidore, who was still busy and lost in his imagination.
I will fight you. No, you won't.
You know how I have cared for you, looked after you when you were so cold and alone in that nasty little dungeon the king put you in. Yes, my queen, I am forever grateful. I must confess the little one has captured my heart as well. I have never liked children much, but he is simply charming.
Rose looked over at Isidore and blushed with motherly pride.
And so I am left with a difficult decision.
Rose's attention snapped back to the queen. She sat up a little straighter.
Whatever do you mean, my liege? There are powers beyond my control that tie my hands. Though I love you both, I cannot have you both. I do not follow. I must have a successor in place, but only one. A person who would inherit the keys to my kingdom. It has been long my plan to make you this person. But the child complicates matters. He, too, would make a worthy successor. Why not name me as your heir, and I, in turn, will name Isidore as mine? It is not so simple. The powers I wield, and which you may someday wield, are vast, but also delicate. I must stay the course when I receive a decisive message from them. And the message I receive today is clear as crystal. What is it? That one of you will be my successor, and the other must perish.
Rose's jaw dropped, and she looked at Isidore, blissfully unaware of the dire conversation taking place only a few feet away.
It is awful, I know, but inevitable.
Rose's mind raced. Despite the woman's sympathetic tone, Rose spied the underlying delight that sparkled in the Dark Queen's eyes. Rose had been through enough in her dealing with traitors like Duke Elegy to understand that she was being manipulated. The Queen aimed to play her off of her son, to make her jealous of the power that could be his but should be hers. Only days ago, Rose might have let the temptation consume her. Not now. Still, she could not let the Dark Queen suspect anything. The puppet master must continue to believe the puppets danced at her will.
So, if Isidore lives and becomes your heir, I must die.
The sorceress drifted toward the door.
Yes, my sweet. We only have until tomorrow, so you must make your decision quickly. So it is my decision then? I thought you said it was yours to make.
The Dark Queen paused.
I am leaving it with you. I cannot bear to make it myself.
And with that, she slipped out of the room and out of sight, leaving Rose with much to ponder. Oscar and Cedrica continued their search for the obelisk in the woods. As they walked, they heard the sound of someone else approaching.
Who goes there? It is I, old friend.
It had been weeks, if not months, since the two men had last seen each other. Oscar's hopes soared at the thought that his friend might join him and Cedrica on this vital quest. But as the Marquise Fairing approached, horror replaced the hope in Oscar's eyes. The Marquise's body was littered with arrows, and his eyes glowed with a blue light.
Good to see you again.
Despite the seemingly endless waves of undead which descended on us, our line held firm. The ancient sword in Aldrich's hand cleaved through enemies with ease. Even Henry had gained some momentum, getting into the rhythm of melee, despite his injured arm. Ice spells flowed through me, allowing me to take out 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 foes at once. He grinned. Somehow, despite the odds we faced, we were holding strong. More than that, we were starting to win. A familiar sound rang through our ears. The booming steps of the giant were fast approaching. This time, the undead soldiers parted, clearing a path for the massive beast as it rounded a corner and bounded toward us. Again, I tried to form an ice wall, but the giant plowed right through it, as though it were made of powdered snow instead of solid ice. I pointed my sword and sent out a stream of frost. The creature battered at the cold with its arms, and while I damaged its torso and the skin of its arms, the giant did not slow. He would be on us in seconds. He bellowed and scooped up a nearby vendor cart, hurling it at us. Soldiers were crushed instantly. Aldrich, Henry, and I ducked, but a portion of the wooden frame clipped my head, sending me sprawling. I could feel blood seeping from the wound. I touched the injury and found that, while it did not seem life-threatening, it rendered me somewhat stunned. I tried to shoot more spells at the monster, but each shot went wide. Henry stood before me, ready to protect me at all costs. Henry! A shrill whistle echoed through the street. The giant slowed to a stop, and then turned to investigate the sound. A solitary knight sat astride a gleaming white horse, sunlight reflecting brilliantly off his armor. In my dazed state, with my vision hazy, the knight seemed to almost glow with holy light.
Hear me now, spawn of hell! You will not harm my queen!
I knew the voice that called out. It was Sir Artemis. He held a shield in one hand and hefted a long lance in the other. The old knight stared down the giant. Near me, a soldier stood and rushed to the giant, thinking to attack it while it was distracted by the old knight. As the young soldier neared the monster, it kicked backward, killing the poor man on impact and sending his body soaring overhead. Sir Artemis looked on, undeterred.
Do you surrender? Then prepare to meet thy doom.
Sir Artemis slid down the visor of his sallet helmet. His horse reared back, and my brave knight charged the beast. The giant beat upon its chest and ran to meet him. Sir Artemis lowered his lance. The giant gnashed its teeth and thrashed its arms with violent speed of the windmill blades in a hurricane. But Sir Artemis never slowed. He drove his steed onward.
For Elasaria!
At the last moment, Sir Artemis changed the angle of his lance, aiming not for the creature's centre, but its leg. The lance pierced right through the giant's knee. The leg collapsed and the giant fell, but not before spinning and smashing its claw directly into Artemis, piercing a giant finger through the brave knight's chest. The giant flailed his arms in pain, sending Sir Artemis flying through the air and into the solid stone wall of a building. Artemis! The giant scrambled up but could not stand, for the damage in its knee was too great. A wave of violent anger swelled up in Henry. He charged at the creature, leaping onto its back and plunging in his sword. It grasped at Henry, but was too slow. Heedless of his exhaustion or the wounds in his arm, Henry climbed the back of the creature, piercing his sword in again and again as he went. He reached the beast's shoulders. The giant grabbed hold of Henry just as he brought his sword down upon its neck. The hideous head of the creature fell and bounced along the stony street, thick, dark blood oozing from it. The glowing light in its remaining eye dimmed, then went out. Henry leaped off the giant's body as it slumped to the side. A stillness hung in the air. Then, the men around us cheered, and with newfound conviction charged the unseen forces, which stood gawking at the demise of their gargantuan comrade. As the line of battle moved further down the street, I ran and pulled Henry into my arms. The thing nearly killed you.
But it did not, and now Haxon is avenged.
Henry gazed up into the sky, then turned his gaze back to me. I kissed him and pulled him in close.
Well done, Henry. It would not have been possible, were it not for...
We all turned to face the fallen knight. I ran to him. Sir Artemis! Sir Artemis! Tears filled my eyes. I stooped beside him and placed my hand gently on his shoulders as he took his last breaths. Sir Artemis, you did it. You saved us.
My queen.
Sir Artemis looked at me lovingly and smiled as his life left his broken body. I fumbled with the straps of his sallet, my fingers shaking. Finally, I undid the latches and pulled the helmet off of his head. His eyes, tinged with grey, stared up at me, but there was no life left in them. Blood dripped from his nostrils and mouth, staining the white of his moustache and beard. I cradled his head in my arms, weeping. Aldrich and Henry stood near me. I looked up at them. Tears filled their eyes as well. My husband kneeled beside me and placed an arm around my shoulder. The sounds of combat felt so distant now. I closed Sir Artemis's lids. You have served me well. Rest now, brave knight. Rest. I knew we would need to rejoin the fray, but for now I stayed with my friend for a few quiet moments. We must get you to safety.
Alexander, red in the face from all his fussing, clenched his little fists in the makeshift crib he spent most of his time in his tower. The little soul had no idea what was happening. How could he? He missed his mother, longed for his father, and was being dragged around from place to place. Even if children cannot grasp the gravity of their situations, they can sense chaos when it is afoot, especially if they were born with wise and ancient magic within them and a mixture of two royal bloodlines. Evelyn, slight in frame, lifted Alexander out of the crib, making note of the boy's significant heft. Ordinarily, his healthy growth would have been impressive. A boy of royal lineage growing quickly into the imposing stature you would expect of his lineage. But Evelyn, a sparrow in the bird-headed tribe, knew she would have no way of carrying this boy to safety.
Going on foot is no use. We'll be struck before we even make it out of the castle.
She panicked, pacing the floor of the tower, not knowing how she got to this point.
I swore to the Queen. I vowed to keep her son safe. What was the plan?
She tugged at her own hair and bit her lip raw. Every time an idea entered her mind, it fell flat. How often had she longed to be a bigger bird, a better mother? Now was no different.
Through sorcery, her son is born. It is not his only foe.
Evelyn stopped pacing and looked at the oracle in the corner of the room, seated comfortably cross-legged on a pillow.
Now is not the time to impart false wisdom. There is a child's life at stake. Do you care about that? Do you care about anything? The future's weight cannot move me. I can only deliver the truth of fate. Right. Well, the truth of fate is that the literal future of our realm is in our hands, and we have no way to protect him.
Tired of not being looked at, Alexander began to flap his arms against the sides.
Bah! Bah!
The prodigal son's instinct rings. He did not ask for arms, but wings. Wings.
Still racked with worry and frustration, Evelyn looked more closely at Alexander's flapping arms.
What are you trying to tell me, little one?
She gently placed Alexander on the soft surface of the crib. Her eyes locked on to his. She took another deep breath, attempting to tap into the ancient magic that flowed within both of them.
Little one, let the power within awaken.
But Alexander remained a crying infant, seemingly oblivious to Evelyn's attempts.
Come on, there must be a way to unlock your potential. To soar in the sky is to defy death. To fly together, two must share the same breath.
Evelyn furrowed her brow, trying to decipher the meaning. She took a deep breath and leaned in, pressing her forehead against the baby's. As she focused on Alexander, a shimmering light surrounded him, and the baby began to transform before her eyes. Feathers sprouted from his tiny form, and his cries turned into the gentle chirps of a baby eagle. The oracle watched the scene unfold with a knowing look. Evelyn, now understanding that she was helping her all along, gave her a smile. She picked Alexander up and cradled the baby eagle in her arms.
Wings to carry you beyond the reach of danger.
As if in response, the baby eagle nestled against Evelyn's chest, its small beak nuzzling into the crook of her neck. Her panic began to subside. With the transformed Alexander in her arms, Evelyn glanced around the tower, her mind racing with possibilities. It was time to put this newfound knowledge to use and ensure the safety of the royal bloodline.
We have wings, my prince. Let us soar to safety and face the challenges that lie ahead.
Evelyn found her sparrow form and began helping Alexander fly around the tower. The baby eagle, sensing Evelyn's instruction, opened its wings and, after some practice, together they felt the rush of wind and freedom. The tower became a fleeting memory as they soared into the night sky, the moonlight illuminating their path. Oscar and Cedrica took involuntary steps back, their hands instinctively reaching for the weapons at their sides. The once lively Marquise Faring now stood before them as an animated corpse controlled by dark forces.
By the gods, what happened to him?
Looks like the Dark Queen's work. We need to be careful. He might not be alone.
The eerie glow in Marquise Faring's eyes intensified as he took another step forward. His voice carried a haunting resonance, echoing through the desolate woods.
Join me. Join the Queen. Power beyond your wildest dreams awaits.
Without warning, Marquise Faring lunged at them with supernatural speed. Oscar and Cedrica barely had time to react, dodging his grasp. His eyes glowed with an unnatural blue light, and the air around him hummed with dark energy. Tormented by the sight of his once dear friend turning into this monstrous creature, Oscar steeled himself for the inevitable confrontation.
We have to stop him, Oscar. There's no turning back.
Oscar unsheathed his sword, and Cedrica tightened her grip on her staff. The fight unfolded in a flurry of flows and dodges. Marquise Faring wielded a corroded sword with surprising skill, starkly contrasting the animated decay that consumed his form. Oscar parried the strikes, his face etched with the pain of facing a former comrade turned foe.
Yield!
Cedrica unleashed a burst of blows, attempting to restrain Marquise Faring, but the undead creature resisted, his malevolent determination overpowering her enchantment. The battle raged on, each clash of weapons echoing through the darkened woods. Oscar, fueled by both grief and necessity, pressed forward, engaging in a dance of blades with the corrupted Marquise. At one point in the fight, the Marquise Faring was distracted trying to land a blow onto Cedrica, and Oscar circled behind Marquise Faring, his sword raised with a heavy heart. The memories of their past friendship weighed on Oscar's shoulders as he prepared for the inevitable.
Forgive me, old friend.
With a swift and precise motion, Oscar brought down his sword, severing Marquise Faring's head from his undead body. The unnatural glow in the Marquise's eyes flickered for a moment, before fading away.
Thank you.
Oscar, his eyes filled with sorrow, watched as the corrupted soul began to dissipate into the ether. Cedrica lowered her weapon, her gaze reflecting the emotional weight of the encounter.
He was a good man once.
The best man.
They both looked at the ground, with nothing left to say.
There is a man who knows the way. Follow the path of forgotten whispers.
And he was gone.
Forgotten whispers? Shadows in moonlit glades? What does it mean?
Perhaps it's a riddle? A clue to the location of the obelisk? We need to interpret it. It sounds like a specific place, a location within the woods. We need to think like him, like the Marquis Faring. What would he consider forgotten whispers?
Forgotten whispers. The Whispering Grove. It's a place from our childhood, a sanctuary where Marquise and I used to come together. We shared secrets, dreams, and, yes, forgotten whispers. The realization dawned on Oscar, and memories from their youth flooded back. The Whispering Grove, with its ancient trees, was a haven where they forged a bond that time had almost erased. Nasty little rule breakers we were. We called it the Whispering Grove because we said only the trees could handle our secrets. It must be where the man who knows the way will be next. As Oscar reminisced about the laughter they shared, the joy of childhood friendship, he couldn't help but smile. Thank you, Marquise Faring. One last favor, guiding us from beyond.
The battlefield was a chaotic tapestry of clashing steel, screams, and the pungent scent of blood. The weight of my armor bore down on me, matching the heaviness in my heart. My gaze shifted to the sky, a fleeting escape from the brutal reality. High above, the heavens offered a respite, a canvas painted with clouds and the hues of a twilight that seemed indifferent to the human conflict below. A lone sparrow soared gracefully amidst the turmoil, navigating the currents with agile wings. I felt a flicker of hope as I recognized her. Evelyn, a loyal guardian, was transformed and free. As I watched the sky, another silhouette joined Evelyn. A small yet majestic and powerful baby eagle circled the chaos below. My heart skipped a beat as I realized the truth. Alexander, my son, born upon wings not of this world. Alexander. The battlefield's symphony of war seemed to fade as I witnessed the ethereal dance of sparrows and eagles. They circled higher, away from the carnage, leaving the brutality below the serenity of the skies. Be free, my love. Find safety amidst the clouds. In that fleeting moment, my heart longed for the embrace of my child, yearning for a world where innocence soared high and untainted by the struggles below. May the heavens protect you, my little eagle. I turned my gaze back to the battlefield with a determined resolve, and a newfound strength surged within me. My hands, encased in icy power, shimmered with a frosty glow. The entrance to the palace, a vulnerable gateway, lay exposed amidst the onslaught. Gathering the remnants of my strength, I focused on the incantation that echoed through my blood. By the ice's embrace, let darkness yield. A crystalline wave of magic emanated from my outstretched hands, weaving through the air with power and grace. The frigid energy danced around the entrance, forming an intricate pattern of frost and frostbite. Soldiers locked in combat turned their attention toward me, eyes widened in amazement. Some halted mid-swing, their weapons frozen in the air, as if mirroring the crystalline magic unfolding before them. Strength was immense, the toll on my body evident, but the wall grew in strength and stature. My breath crystallized in frigid air, the sheer determination fueling the magic. And the soldiers below witnessed a queen forging an impenetrable fortress with her very essence. As the final layer solidified, a moment of silence hung in the air before the battlefield resumed its cacophony. The inspired soldiers returned to the fight with newfound vigor, knowing their queen had wielded a power beyond imagination to safeguard their realm. All that was left to fight was already before us. With precision and unity, the Elisarian soldiers moved as one, pushing back the bandits and the undead. The once chaotic battleground now transformed into a disciplined front, the soldiers exhibiting their training and the strength drawn from the bonds that held them together. The bandits, disoriented by the coordinated assaults, faltered in the face of the resolute defenders. The undead, unfamiliar with the cunning leadership that our soldiers were ruled by, stumbled and fell beneath the might of Elisaria's army. Tides turned, and a sense of victory echoed through the air. Elisaria's soldiers fought not only for the kingdom but for their families, their homes, and their queen. The very soil beneath their feet seemed to resonate with their shared purpose. I looked around and watched as the last bandit was slain, the icy ground shimmering with blood in the fallen light from the undead. Elisaria. I collapsed and began to sob, finally allowing myself to internalize all I had seen. My thoughts turned to the sacrifices made for the kingdom. My heart ached for Sir Artemis, the valiant knight who laid his life down for Elisaria. For me. Sir Artemis. Tears streamed down my face, and in the midst of my grief, Aldrich approached and simply offered his hand. Without a second thought, I took it. Together we walked to a familiar spot in the garden, the place that held memories of tranquility and shared moments. In the garden, surrounded by the fragrance of blooming flowers, we discovered Henry, transformed into his beautiful golden form. His avian form allowed him a moment of anonymity and peace, away from the weight of his responsibilities. Majesty. Aldrich and I joined Henry in the garden, our tears mingling with the soft rustling of leaves. The three figures, each carrying the burdens of loss and sacrifice, found solace in our shared grief. Sir Artemis gave his life for us. His sacrifice won't be forgotten.
We've lost friends, but we have also secured a future for our people.
Majesty chirped softly, a poignant melody that echoed our shared sorrow and resilience. We sat together, united by grief. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting hues of orange and purple across the sky, we found a moment of reflection. The path ahead was uncertain, but in the garden, surrounded by the whispers of nature, we discovered a fleeting sense of peace amidst the chaos. The city was safe for now.
Schuyler stood, determined, in Aldrich's chambers, safeguarding the portrait frozen over with Bronwyn's ice magic and sealed with her own. She held her breath when she heard someone approaching.
Who goes there? Schuyler. Viscountess Stormcloak? You may call me Mother. Mother?
Viscountess Stormcloak entered with the Viscount William timidly.
I did not imagine you'd come.
We do not deserve your forgiveness, but we have chosen to accept it.
I'm glad.
The Viscountess looked at the portrait Schuyler was guarding, a warped, icy portrait of Bronwyn and the Princess Beatrice.
What are you doing? There is a magical stone within the safe behind this painting. No one must touch it other than Queen Bronwyn herself. I have promised to protect it.
Viscountess Stormcloak, overcome with curiosity, approached the portrait cautiously.
A magical stone. The very tear. It's a powerful jewel that can undo the darkness that has plagued us.
Viscount Stormcloak joined them, a mixture of awe and trepidation in his eyes.
We want to help, Schuyler. To redeem ourselves.
Then stay with me.
We will never leave again.
The trio stood in front of the sealed portrait, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Skylar's gaze softened as she looked at her parents, the weight of years of separation and pain slowly lifting.
Thank you for coming, and for choosing redemption.
Skylar's eyes welled with tears as she embraced her mother, the years of yearning for a maternal presence finally fulfilled. Viscount Stormcloak, watching the tender moment unfold, felt a profound sense of remorse and longing.
Skylar.
Skylar turned to her father, and he enveloped her in a heartfelt embrace.
I never thought I'd have this moment.
As the tender moment of family reunion unfolded in Aldrich's chambers, a chilling presence began to permeate the air. Wisps of dark smoke curled from the fireplace, and with an unsettling quiet, the man who knew the way emerged, his jaw hanging from his cheekbones, constantly threatening to snap off at any moment. He was followed by the foreboding arrival of the Dark Queen herself, though not in physical form. She was a spectre, an illusion, an astral version of herself projected from some other place. She seemed to distort the very air around her. Tall and regal, she wore a flowing gown that mirrored the shadows, shifting between shades of deepest black and flickering embers. Her long obsidian hair cascaded down her back like a veil of darkness, and her eyes gleamed with an otherworldly intensity, radiating a malevolence that sent shivers down the spine of those who beheld her.
Skylar, dear Skylar, you have made quite the spectacle, reuniting with your lost family.
The Dark Queen circled Skylar, her whispers of temptation weaving through the air like dark tendrils.
Skylar, think of the power we could wield together, the realms at our feet, shaping the destiny of Alisaria. You could be more than a pawn in this game.
Skylar felt the weight of the Dark Queen's words, the allure of power threatening to sway her resolve. As doubt crept in, the Dark Queen continued her unsettling dance, turning her attention towards Skylar's parents. She smiled broadly.
And what of your other daughter, the one you were never able to find? Such a sweet reunion awaits you. Perhaps you'd like a glimpse.
Skylar's parents, visibly shaken, were drawn into the Dark Queen's taunts, their attention diverted by the prospect of another lost family member.
Tell us, where is she? What have you done to her?
You have my sister.
In that moment of uncertainty, the man who knew the way took advantage of the distraction. Silently, he inched towards the sealed portrait, his eyes fixed on the safe containing the fairy tear. But Skylar, sensing a shift in the balance, glanced towards the man who knew the way. His intent was clear, and Skylar's internal struggle intensified.
No, I won't be a part of your twisted games.
Shaking off the Dark Queen's influence, Skylar rushed towards the man who knew the way, her instincts guiding her to protect the precious jewel. She lunged towards him.
Stop! Stay back, orphan.
From the palms of her hands, hot, black smoke shot at full speed towards Skylar, who was an inch away from stopping the man who knew the way.
She is no orphan!
In that critical moment, Viscount William Stormcloak, driven by a father's love and an innate sense of sacrifice, leapt in front of Skylar, shielding her from the impending magical onslaught. The dark energy collided with Viscount Stormcloak, enveloping him in shadows.
Father?
Viscount Stormcloak staggered, his strength waning. A pained smile crossed his lips as he met Skylar's gaze, and then collapsed onto the floor.
Oh.
In an eruption of grief-fueled rage, Skylar unleashed a torrent of magic, a tempest of raw power directed at the Dark Queen. Arcane energy crackled through the air, striking the Dark Queen and momentarily overwhelming her with the force of Skylar's wrath. The Dark Queen recoiled, wounded and enraged, as the storm of Skylar's magic raged on. But just as the confrontation reached a critical point, the Dark Queen's twisted laughter echoed through the chamber.
You think this changes anything, Skylar? When I arrive, everyone in Elysaria will die.
Before Skylar could deliver a decisive blow, the Dark Queen and the man who knew the way began to fade, their forms dissolving into shadows. With an ominous hiss, they retreated into the confines of Aldrich's fireplace, disappearing from the chamber. Skylar stared at the now empty fireplace, the taste of bitterness and victory lingering on her lips. The heavy air of sorrow and loss clung to the room as she mourned her father and grappled with the consequences of her unleashed magic. Skylar knelt beside her weeping mother, the weight of grief pressing down on them both. Viscount William Stormcloak's lifeless form lay between them.
Mother, why did he?
Skylar's voice was a gentle balm as she placed a comforting hand on her mother's shoulder.
He sacrificed himself to save me. To save us.
Viscountess Martha Stormcloak clung to Skylar, their shared sorrow forging an unspoken bond between them.
The Dark Queen and the man who knew the way have seen the fairy tear. It's no longer safe here. What must we do? You need to alert Queen Bronwyn. She must know that the fairy tear is no longer secure. The Dark Queen will stop at nothing to possess it.
Viscountess Stormcloak nodded.
I will go to Queen Bronwyn. I'll make sure she knows.
As Viscountess Stormcloak rose to her feet, the weight of responsibility in her eyes, Skylar surveyed the chamber, her eyes lingering on her fallen father.
And I will find a way to stop the Dark Queen. This ends now.
In the otherworldly realm where the Dark Queen held sway, surrounded by the eerie glow of pulsating shadows, she raised her hands, commanding her magic. With a malevolent grin, she spoke an announcement that echoed through the conduits of her dark influence across Elysaria. In every room of every home, in every sword etched with ancient symbols, in every tree that contained the secrets of man, a blue aura began to pulsate, and a voice began to echo.
People of Elysaria, hear me. A proclamation from the heart of shadows. I, the Dark Queen, demand the jewel of immense power, the fairy tear, be brought to me within the next 24 hours. Elysaria, and every soul within, will burn if not.
The vibrations of her voice reached every corner of Elysaria where her influence lingered. Fireplaces, adorned with ancient symbols and connected to the otherworldly realm, flickered to life as the voice of the Dark Queen reverberated within. The announcement struck terror into the hearts of those who heard it, the vibrations of the runes and the crackling fireplaces creating an unsettling symphony of impending doom to all within the walls of Elysaria. As the Dark Queen's ominous proclamation echoed through the land, an unholy energy stirred within the Elysarian battlefield. The corpses of fallen warriors scattered across the blood-soaked earth twitched and convulsed as an otherworldly force surged through their lifeless forms. A ghastly sight unfolded as the fallen soldiers, thought to be at rest, began to rise. Hollow eyes, devoid of life, now flickered with an eerie glow as the Dark Queen's dark magic breathed new, unnatural life into them. The fallen, now reanimated by the malevolent power of the Dark Queen, stood on their feet once more. Clad in tattered armor and bearing the scars of their previous demise, they were transformed into an army of the undead. The battlefield became a nightmarish tableau as the reanimated corpses moved in unison, the air filled with the haunting sounds of their collective groans and the clanking of their armor.
Rise. The battle is not over. It has just begun.
The undead army stood ready to unleash death on all. The land trembled under the weight of impending doom as the reanimated warriors became pawns in the Queen's relentless pursuit of power. One soldier's limbs twitched, his body convulsing in a grotesque display. The ground beneath him seemed to pulse with dark magic, as if the very earth rebelled against the unholy resurrection. A malevolent force enveloped the lifeless form, twisting its limbs into unnatural positions as a haunting light flickered within his vacant eye sockets. Sinister whispers echoed through the air. An unholy choir, celebrating the reanimation of a warrior lost to the Dark Queen's command. It was only as the soldiers stood tall, an embodiment of twisted resurrection, that the truth became clear. The once noble knight, Sir Artemis, now stood among the ranks of the enemy. Throughout the streets and along the walls where the fighting had taken place, fallen soldiers rose to their feet, a pale blue light glowing in their eyes. The Elysarian troops watched in abject horror as the men they had only just begun to mourn, men who had died to protect their countrymen, now marched to oppose them. The dead men congregated at the entrances and exits to the city. The Dark Queen had declared that in 24 hours she would burn Elysaria to the ground if she did not get her stone. It was now clear she would not permit any attempts to flee the city. The walls that had served to protect the capital's citizens were now prison walls.
I paced about my room in the southern palace, my mind as storming as the dark clouds visible on the horizon outside my window. Henry sat watching, a gentle, sympathetic expression on his face.
Majesty, you must rest, if only for a little while.
I shall not find sleep.
That is fine. Only it might do you some good to sit and be still.
The stillness is what I find maddening. I want to take action.
Aldrich oversees the battle strategy. Our soldiers are recuperating and the stone is carefully guarded. There are no more actions to take.
Is there not one? He furrowed his brow, confused. I could give up the stone.
No, you mustn't.
You heard her warning. If we hold on to the buried here, then the deaths of these good people will be on our hands. My hands.
You are wrong, Bronwyn.
He stood and took my hands in his.
Any blame for these horrifying events lies solely with the Dark Queen. It is her ultimatum.
I hate that our destinies lie in the hands of someone else.
Then steal your destiny back. Hold onto the stone. Defy her.
My gaze fell on Henry's wounded arm, the damage done when he gripped tightly to the ferry tier. I met his eyes once more. You're right. We must keep it.
Besides, it is not as though we can trust anything she says. Rose gazed out her window. The green clouds overhead, tumultuous and moody. A strange quiet had fallen over the Dark Queen's castle grounds since the army marched to Elisaria. But there was something more than that going on. It was as though a heavy weight had lifted in the atmosphere of the castle.
She's gone again. She is ready to overtake Elisaria. I can feel it.
Saying it out loud, Rose knew it to be true. Had she not felt this same way when the Queen ventured forth before? She looked back at Isidore, napping on her bed. At that moment, her decision was made. She went to the toddler, wrapped him in a small blanket, and picked him up. He stirred, but did not wake. That was good. He needed to be quiet if they were going to escape unnoticed. Rose peered out the door of her room and looked down the corridor. She did not see any guards, nor could she hear any.
I must have played my part well. She would have placed guards at my door if she had expected treachery.
Rose crept out of the room and made her way through the castle corridors. She paused before every corner to listen. Once or twice, she had to wait for an ambling, undead soldier to shuffle past. It was a painfully slow endeavor, especially when knowing time was of the essence. But slowness was necessary. She could not afford to rush. Any slip-up could prove fatal to her and Isidore. The benefit of her measured escape was that the child continued to sleep soundly in her arms. She looked down at her boy, his little face half buried in her shoulder. A thought occurred to her.
I fled the Rothescue estate without him. I abandoned him because I thought he was dead. And now here I am fleeing again. This time I have him. This time we are together.
Rose descended a winding staircase and found herself near one of the castle's side entrances. To her frustration, a guard stood watch. She could navigate to another exit, but that would only further delay their escape. Worse, she might get lost in the maze-like hallways. She pondered what to do next, when the guard marched away. Rose watched, confused. A flash of realization crossed her face.
Of course, the Queen has spread her forces too thin. With most of them in Elisaria, only a few guards are left at the castle. This one must be watching multiple entrances.
Rose carefully approached the entrance and poked her head out. She watched the guard in the distance rounding a corner. That was good enough for her. Rose broke into an all-out run. Her legs felt weak as they had not yet fully recovered from her time in the dungeon, but she pushed on regardless, forcing them to carry her and Isidore faster and faster. The boy jostled awake.
Where are we going?
Home. We're going home.
Aldrich walked with Sir James through the streets closest to the breached gate. In this area, the damage done to the city was the most severe. Bandits had set fires in many of the buildings, and the giant, in its rampage, had leveled several structures. A few blocks away, a clock tower that had stood for over 2 centuries now leaned precariously, its foundation largely demolished. The king turned to his general.
We are fortunate Sir Artemis and Henry slew that giant before it could do more damage.
Yes. Aldrich watched Sir James closely. Clearly, the man who had seen countless battles in his lifetime was rattled.
What do you recommend as our next course of action?
Well, my king, I would suggest we hold firm under normal circumstances, maintain our current defensive position on the streets, and keep the Dark Queen's forces relegated to outer areas nearest the city walls. Our men fought well, and felled many of her soldiers.
But these are far from normal circumstances.
Quite right, my king. Her little parlor trick, raising the dead, reinforced her number and brought her army back to full strength.
Yes, it was wise of her to bring the bandits. Each of them counts as 2. Should they die, they come right back.
And she has some of our men, too.
Aldrich thought of Sir Artemis and shivered. That once brave knight now stood with the other undead, guarding the gates.
So, I come back to my original question. What do you think I should do?
Order a full retreat to the palace. Fortify the ramparts there.
And prepare for our final stand.
The sky above boomed with thunder. Dark clouds loomed over the city.
Give the order.
Yes, my king.
I stood on the balcony, looking out toward the steeples and spires of the capital. Fires burned across the city, illuminating the dark clouds above. The future I had seen in my visions was a familiar sight to me. I watched an old clock tower crack and collapse into rubble, its golden face briefly reflecting the destruction around it, before it disappeared into a cloud of debris. I heard a soft footfall beside me and turned, half expecting to see the rotted deer from my nightmares. Instead, I found Lady Laura. "Hello, my queen. Apologies if I startled you." I looked down at my hands and saw that I had frozen a portion of the stone railing. I released my grip. "No need to apologize." "My queen, you needn't do this." "Do what?" "Torture yourself. Come away from that awful view." "I have seen it before." "Oh?" "In my vision. I always feared that the glimpse of the future I had seen was our utter defeat. Now that this dark moment is here, I wonder, does it mean we have been defeated, and our cause is already lost?" Laura frowned and lowered her head, frightened by the thought. But I continued. "Or does it mean that from this point forward, anything is possible?" She perked up, hopeful. "Even victory?" Yes, Laura. Even victory.
With Isidore in her arms, Rose walked onward across the ethereal moorlands with aching steps. The ground here was boggy, and she occasionally had to pause and yank her feet out of the muck. She glanced over her shoulder. The Dark Queen's castle had grown small with distance, but was still much too close for Rose's comfort. She would not be satisfied until she had left this strange realm behind. Rose saw a boulder ahead and decided that, like it or not, she needed to rest. She stepped onto the rock and took a seat. Isidore squirmed out of her arms and plopped down beside her. He looked around, his little face scrunched up with confusion.
This isn't home.
We aren't there yet. I just need to rest a little while.
Isidore stood again and waddled back and forth along the boulder. Now that Rose had a moment to stop and think, she took in her surroundings. The moorlands continued for miles in every direction, only occasionally broken up by the ruins of some ancient structures. Far off on the horizon, she could make out tall mountains, but only when lightning flashed behind them.
I don't understand. We should have reached the portal by now. I must have gone the wrong way.
Rose smacked her head in frustration. She had been in such a hurry to flee the castle that she hadn't much cared what direction she was running in. Now she was in a strange place with a child to care for, and still well within the reach of the Dark Queen, should she discover their absence.
She will know we have escaped soon. She may already know.
Rose wondered how likely that was. She stared at the castle again, straining her eyes. She couldn't detect any movement, no sign of troops coming after her. But then again, it was very far off.
Whoa!
Rose turned and followed Isidore's gaze. He was looking in the direction of the mountains.
Those are mountains.
Oh. The mountains moved.
Isidore clapped, impressed. Rose glanced at Isidore, then focused back on the mountains. After a few moments, lightning flashed behind them again. They were still there, but they did seem to be in a slightly different position than she remembered. Unnerved, Rose kept watching. There came another flash of lightning.
Oh!
The mountains, or what had seemed to be mountains, rose up. They were beasts, massive beasts of a size beyond comprehension. Her glimpse was too brief to take in much detail, but she saw enough to be afraid. Strange calls rang out.
That sound! It is them!
She both feared and hoped for another lightning flash, so that she could get one more view of the eldritch monsters. None came. For a terrifying moment, Rose wondered if they were agents of the Dark Queen, on their way to recapture or kill her and Isidore. But she soon dismissed this notion. As powerful as the sorceress was, she could not have brought beings like that into existence. No, whatever they were, they did not answer to her. It occurred to Rose that they might be the true gods of this strange realm. She did not want to find out.
Curious that I should only see those things now. They have never appeared near the castle. Maybe they keep deeper in toward the heart of this realm.
Rose tore her gaze away from the dark horizon where those entities dwelled. She turned in the opposite direction instead.
Maybe to move away from them is to move toward the boundary between the worlds. Come, Isidore.
She scooped up the child and stepped off the boulder. He peered behind her shoulder and waved.
Bye-bye, mountains.
Rose pushed on in the direction she hoped would take them back to the mortal realm. At any rate, it would be good to get further away from those fearsome entities. Cedrica and Oscar slumped to the ground, exhausted from marching through the woods and from their harrowing encounters with the foul wolf things, dead trees, and Marquise Faring.
Just a quick break. We must press on again soon.
If only the obelisk were in an open field. Then at least we could see the damned thing.
Then the enemy would see us too.
Good. Then we could have it out and be done with the whole matter.
The two sat in silence for a time, catching their breaths.
That thing Marquise Faring said about one man knowing the way. I have been puzzling over it for hours now, and cannot make heads or tails of it.
Perhaps you're treating it like a riddle when it is not one.
Great. We can abandon the search for the obelisk and take up the search for the man.
I'm sure he's somewhere in Alasaria. We can start going door to door.
Excuse me, do you happen to know a man who can point us in the direction of a certain evil artifact?
The two knights laughed, releasing some of the tension from the taxing day.
If we're going to have a rest, we might as well cook up some of the salt pork we brought along.
Right, I'm starved.
Cedrica reached down to the pack where she'd kept some of their supplies. There was a sizable tear in the side.
Oh, damn!
What?
It's gone! My pack has a gash in it. It must have happened during our scrap with the dead trees.
Oh, well, I never much liked salt pork anyway.
Oscar unstrapped his bow from his pack and grabbed his quiver.
Let us hunt.
Henry walked down a long corridor on one of the uppermost floors of the palace. He was deep in thought, and so had let his feet carry him wherever they willed, without much care. Henry was pulled from his rumination by the sounds of footsteps behind him. He turned and saw a guard only several feet behind.
Hello?
The guard nodded. He had his helmet pulled low, and Henry could not get a good look at his face.
I appreciate your diligence in looking after me, but I am all right and wish to be alone.
The guard did not move. Henry stared at the man.
I said I wish to be alone.
Still, the guard did not move.
Remove your helmet.
Why?
Because I want to see the face of the man who means to kill me.
The guard threw off his helmet.
So, here you are, Kelderic.
Kelderic grinned, pulling the green bandana out from where he had tucked it away.
I wanted to thank you for leaving your home to me. I think you'd love what we've done with the place. Ah!
The men drew swords and in an instant were clashing blades. Kelderic's fierce blows put Henry on his heels. He was driven backward, through a passageway and out of the corridor. Henry found they were now standing on an exposed passageway along the rooftop of the palace. The ground beneath their feet was slick with rain, and it was all too easy to imagine slipping and tumbling over the railing to the hard ground below. Lightning flashed above, casting Kelderic's villainous features in monstrous relief.
How does it feel to be the king who fled?
I did what I must to save my people. How about your people? You let your comrades die in the streets to be the puppets of the Dark Queen.
Kelderic's sneer fell away. Anger burned in his eyes. He launched another series of vicious attacks. Henry struggled to maintain his grip on his sword. But it was knocked away. He fell to the side, panting for breath. Kelderic loomed over him.
Tisk, tisk. And here I thought your brother was the weakest king to rule the Celestial Isles.
Henry blinked rain out of his eyes. He saw that Kelderic now stood between him and the railing.
Why don't you just fly away, little bird?
Kelderic raised his sword.
Fly, fly away.
Have it your way.
With a flash, Henry turned into majesty and launched himself up at Kelderic's face. His talons dug into the flesh around the bandit's eyes.
Ah!
Henry fluttered forward, dragging the man's head backward and causing him to lose his footing.
No! No!
His feet slipped out from beneath him, and he tumbled back. Henry unlatched his talons and watched from above, as Kelderic flailed and tumbled through the air, landing on the stone tiles in front of the palace with a sickening crunch. Rose could see a strange haziness in the air ahead, like heat rising off hot sand. She had reached the border to the mortal realm.
We're almost out of this horrid place, Isidore.
A cry of pure anger emanated from the distant castle and echoed through the sky.
She knows. We must hurry.
Rose sprinted straight ahead, passing into the hazy air and crossing through the veil between worlds. Rose and Isidore emerged in the woods. She nearly cheered, but stopped herself. Only a short distance away, an eyeless, slack-jawed undead soldier stood guard in front of a stone obelisk. Rose ducked into some foliage.
We must be quiet. Okay?
Isidore nodded. Rose could not say for certain whether or not the toddler understood. Carefully, she crept through bushes and behind thick tree trunks. She could see other walking corpses lumbering around nearby, some human and some animal. She avoided them carefully. She was just passing behind an undead man when he turned slightly toward them. It was Alan Rothescue.
Daddy!
Shh.
But it was too late. Alan's glowing blue eyes narrowed into a glare. He pointed at Rose and Isidore, then opened his mouth and let out an ungodly shriek. Rose took off running. She could hear a dozen or more foul things giving chase behind, but she dared not look. Cedrica and Oscar, with their bows in hand, rose from their hiding spots and approached the fallen deer.
This should stave our hunger for a while. Let's get her skinned.
The deer rose to its feet.
I thought for certain the wound was fatal.
It was... Look.
She pointed. The deer now had faintly glowing eyes. It walked in a strange, lurching way. All at once, realization washed over Cedrica.
Remember back at the tower? That court sorcerer and that guard. They were drawn like moths to the flame toward this obelisk.
Well then, I don't know if there's a man who knows the way, but let us see if this deer does.
Henry lay on the bed, I reached into a bowl of ointment and applied it to his badly damaged arm. He winced. I'm sorry if it stings. Skylar assured me this is the most effective ointment for magical wounds. It hurt my heart to see the damage the fairy tear had done, though I would not say it aloud. I doubted he would ever regain the full use of it.
I am glad Alexander is away and safe. Evelyn will look after him until we get through this.
And if we do not, I am relieved to know he is in good hands.
You mustn't think like that.
Why not? It is the truth. We may not survive this. The gods know we have already seen so many friends die in this conflict. But I do not feel afraid.
No?
No, and for 2 reasons. The first is that Alexander is safe. The second is that whatever happens, I have you by my side. Henry smiled and squeezed my hand, but then a sad look crossed his face.
There is something I must tell you. Something about Rose. And Aldrich.
I felt my blood run cold as I looked into his guilty eyes. What did he need to tell me? What could you possibly have to tell me about Rose and Aldrich that I don't already know? My heartbeat quickened as I looked at Henry, prone on the bed, his arm raw from injury, overuse and treatment. He must be in so much pain. Which made me think the news he was about to deliver wasn't going to be palatable. He must already be hurting enough to speak something aloud that so far has gone unsaid.
I haven't been completely honest with you about the origins of our relationship.
What do you mean?
It was supposed to be a relatively harmless plan. I knew my brother was sick and the kingdom would come to me. He was so weak. The plan was always to turn the Celestial Isles into an empire. And when Duke Elegy convinced me to do it, I figured he just wanted more power. A spot in the eventual Celestial Empire.
Convinced you to do what? Henry looked at me, straight in the eye. There was no going back.
He had heard that there was a slave that contained an ancient form of beauty, with power of influence in her silver hair.
Rose. Henry nodded.
Duke Elegy bribed Count Perdue and Aldrich's other aides to ensure he was out hunting on the day he created the conditions for Rose's escape. Aldrich was always meant to find Rose.
He looked down at his feet.
To take her as his lover.
Why? Why would you do that to Elisaria? To me? He shook his head.
Power.
And I was a pawn in this game as well.
At first. The letters were meant to stir up controversy in the palace. The king of Elisaria had taken a slave for a concubine, and the queen was having a mysterious affair with who knows how many different nobles. The citizens would lose faith in the stability of the Elisarian royal family. They would welcome the empire that was to come.
My blood went so cold that I wondered if I was inadvertently working my ice magic on myself. I stared at him, unblinking. You have made a fool of me. So my pain, Aldrich's anguish, and Rose's suffering were all part of some sick manipulation for power.
Bronwyn, please, believe me. I never wanted any of this. I fell in love with you genuinely, despite the twisted circumstances.
For a moment my anger wavered as I glimpsed the sincerity in his eyes. How can I believe anything you say now?
I know I've shattered your trust, and don't expect forgiveness, but I needed to tell you the truth, to unburden my soul of this guilt.
The truth changes nothing.
No, no! I fell in love with you, Majesty. That's where the plan went wrong.
I do apologize for ruining your plan. Henry shook his head, ashamed.
I begged Duke Elegy to stop, but he had too much fun toying with Rose. And I began to hate Aldrich for what he did to you, and we fell in love. I thought perhaps the ends had wound up justifying the means. But I had no idea.
That you were assisting the end of days?
I just thought he wanted power. I had no idea that the Dark Queen even existed. I didn't know that he was doing her bidding, that he wanted to get Isidore to her, or that he had any association with the Eternal Thousand Bandits. At a certain point, I fell so far out with the Duke, and so far in love with you, that it all felt precious. I was grateful. I was proud.
That perhaps is the most twisted part of everything you've just told me. Why are you saying any of this to me now? Why didn't you just keep me as your foolish little wife, none the wiser? Is there a new plan I'm unaware of?
Because I have had enough of bearing this guilt. You deserve to know, and I am too afraid of causing more harm.
I stood up and put the ointment beside him. Skylar said to apply it every few hours. Please excuse me.
Bronwyn, please.
I began to walk away, but when I turned towards the doorway, I noticed that we were not alone.
Am I interrupting?
Speak of the devil and he shall appear. What are you doing here, Duke Elegy?
Oh, Bronwyn, my dear. How I revel in the exquisite irony of it all. You played your part so well, oblivious to the strings that manipulated your every move. A queen, a puppet, a fool in love. You were nothing more than a pawn, dancing to the melody of deception. Shut your hideous mouth!
Duke Elegy circled the room, his gaze piercing through my defences.
The great queen of Elisaria, unknowingly entangled in a web of lies.
And do you think you're safe from this web? Off with Viscountess Amelia and Beatrice. His smile cracked for a moment, and I met it with my own mischievous grin. A flash of something you care about? Or in your world a weakness?
My loyalty lies with Viscountess Amelia and Beatrice. I fight for them, for a better future. Your plight, though unfortunate, was a necessary twist in the narrative that your husband wrote for you, you poor little mistress.
Duke Elegy's smug demeanour filled the room with tension, and Henry, consumed by a surge of anger, launched himself at Elegy, with a ferocity fueled by betrayal. Henry's attack was swift and unrelenting, desperate to reclaim a sense of control.
You scheming serpent! You've ruined everything!
Flesh met flesh as the men, more like boys, danced through the room. Henry's blows were unrelenting, striking with the force of a man betrayed, while Duke Elegy, recovering from the initial shock, began to retaliate with a cold and calculated precision. But Henry's movements were hindered by the throbbing pain in his injured arm, a reminder of his vulnerability. Seizing the opportunity, Duke Elegy skillfully parried Henry's blows, exploiting the weakness with calculated precision.
A wounded warrior fighting for a lost cause. Look at you, Henry, a traitor and a failure, flailing in desperation. You speak of loyalty to Amelia and Beatrice, yet you're nothing but a pawn yourself. Ah, the wounded lover, blinded by his own foolishness. You were never fit for the throne. And you were, I suppose, betraying the only ones who love you for a taste of power. Power is the only currency that matters, my dear Henry. Something you never truly understood. I understood enough to see through your lies, to see you for the snake you are. Do you think you can judge me? You, who willingly played your part. I played my part out of love, first for my country and then for my wife. What's your excuse, Elegy? What twisted justification do you have? I play the game for Amelia and Beatrice's future, for my own future. A fact I am self-aware enough to admit. A future that doesn't include a bumbling fool like you. Your loyalty to them won't save you when the Dark Queen is done with this realm.
With a swift kick by the Duke Elegy, Henry landed hard on his injured arm.
Ah!
Duke Elegy took a step towards him. Henry tried to sit up, but the Duke stepped on his arm hard. Henry grimaced in pain. "Stop it!"
Help me, Bronwyn.
"You betrayed me."
You betrayed me.
He spit, landing a glob of mucus discharge on Henry's chest.
A queen betrayed, an injured king. Boo fucking who?
His words cut through the air like daggers, like the one Duke Elegy finally drew from his sheath. The glint of the blade mirrored the impending doom, poised to strike a final blow to the already injured Henry. My heart pounded in my chest as I locked eyes with Henry. Desperation mirrored in his gaze. Yet somehow I could not move. I was frozen. And I had been this whole time. My eyes filled with tears and rage.
Bronwyn!
Duke Elegy looked at me, surprised.
Wow. Even I am not that cold.
Duke Elegy took my hesitation as an opportunity to drive the dagger at full force towards Henry's chest. Was my vision of my husband's death of my own doing? No, I will not let that be. Ugh! With a surge of determination, I raised my hand, conjuring an icy spell that enveloped Duke Elegy. Time seemed to stand still as the crystalline magic encased him. The dagger frozen in midair, inches away from Henry's vulnerable form. The room transformed into a tableau of suspended chaos, the threat of the dagger halted by the frigid grip of my magic. Duke Elegy, his sinister intentions frozen along with the blade, now stood captive in an icy prison.
You almost let me die.
Tears streamed down my face. I nodded. I should have.
Aldrich stood alone by the window in the dining room, taking heavy sips from a glass of bourbon. He took a deep sigh and watched the clouds spiral into the beginning of a storm. They looked menacing. He no longer knew what was natural and what was unnatural. It seemed the line between the two was blurring as of late. He poured himself another inch of the whiskey and downed it. He started to pour another, but decided instead to save himself the time of pouring and drank right from the bottle. But before he could, he heard a sound behind him. He thought he was alone. He looked at the door to the dining room and saw that it remained shut.
Hello?
Oh, Your Majesty.
He turned in the direction of the voice and saw Cheryl, Rose's former maid, standing beside what must have been a trick bookcase.
Perks of having been maid to the Queen. You're privy to all the secret passages.
Cheryl spoke with a lilt, and as she said her L's, Aldrich got a glimpse of her mangled tongue. He recoiled at the sight of her disfigurement, her face a mosaic of scars and bruises, the remnants of her suffering under Rose's stewardship.
Do you recall, Aldrich, the day Rose ordered my tongue severed? Punishment for the secrets I knew? Yet here I am, speaking once more.
Aldrich's eyes widened in shock, the memory of that cruel decree resurfacing.
I had no control over her actions.
Control, you say? Your lack of control, your blind allegiance, is what led to my suffering.
Cheryl's words cut through the air like a sharpened blade, each syllable fueled by years of pain and resentment.
Cheryl, I had no choice. Rose's whims were unpredictable, and I had to protect Elisaria.
Protect? You protect Elisaria. Your actions only protected your ambitions, Aldrich. Protected your unmarred wife.
Cheryl's anger intensified. A tempest of emotion fueled by the scars, both physical and emotional, inflicted upon her.
I didn't know the extent of the darkness that would follow. I was a piece in Rose's game, just as you were.
You were the king, Aldrich. Kings shape the destiny of their kingdoms. I refuse to be a victim any longer.
Cheryl's stance grew more menacing, a force determined to break free from the shackles of the past.
Cheryl, we can work together. Stop this madness that Rose has set in motion.
The time for alliances is long past, Aldrich. The veiled hands will ensure justice, even if I must be the sole harbinger of retribution.
Out of the pocket of her tattered dress, she pulled a jagged blade with a J etched into it.
It was my brother's.
Aldrich stared back at her.
You don't even remember him. We're nothing to you, aren't we? Bricks to pave the pathways you walk on. The wood ripped from trees to build your throne. The breasts of the chickens you rip away from her chicks and slide down your gullet.
Instead of running towards him, she walked slowly, unintimidated by the difference in her and Aldrich's sizes.
Stay back.
Die.
Aldrich, his heart heavy with guilt, attempted to restrain Cheryl, not wanting to add more pain to her already tortured existence.
Cheryl, stop this. There's no need for more bloodshed.
Do you think a few cuts can compare to my torment?
Cheryl, listen to reason. Rose's darkness has affected us all, but there's a chance for redemption.
Fueled by her pain and anger, Cheryl wasn't ready to listen. With a burst of energy, she broke free from Aldrich's grasp, momentarily gaining the upper hand. Now on the defensive, Aldrich tried to maintain control of the situation. He knew that she needed to be contained for Cheryl's sake and Elisaria's safety. As they struggled, Aldrich stepped backward and found himself walking through the secret bookcase. Aldrich looked around and realized that the secret entrance from whence Cheryl came took them directly to the dungeon. He saw an opportunity to stop Cheryl from causing harm without hurting her further. When the war was over, he would personally see to it that she found peace. Justice.
I promise, Cheryl. I'll help you find justice and peace when this war is over.
She pushed the dagger as close as she could to his jugular.
For Julian.
At the mention of her brother's name, she became less forceful for a moment.
You do remember him?
It seemed, for an instant, that Cheryl might relent. She looked at Aldrich with a mix of defiance and hope. But just as a flicker of understanding passed between them, an unseen force lifted Cheryl into the air, suspending her above the damp dungeon floor. Aldrich's eyes widened in surprise. He had no control over this mysterious force. And as Cheryl struggled against the invisible bonds, he realized that their encounter had taken an unexpected turn. He turned to see Skylar emerging from the shadows of the dungeon.
Skylar, this isn't what it seems. Cheryl.
Cheryl, the Veiled Hand's leader. One who killed Kaya. I know exactly what she's done.
Skylar's eyes narrowed as she approached Cheryl, still suspended in the air.
This is for Kaya.
Skylar raised her hand, and a surge of powerful magic emanated from her fingertips.
Skylar, please. We can reform her.
But when Skylar looked at Cheryl, momentarily considering mercy, Cheryl, convulsing in pain, stuck her grotesque tongue out. Skylar's face turned beet red, and she clenched her fists, increasing the grip of her magic on Cheryl's small body. In an instant, Cheryl's struggles ceased, and her body went limp as Skylar exacted vengeance for her fallen lover. The moonlight filtered through the ancient trees, casting an ethereal glow on the moss-covered ground. Cedrica and Oscar stood before the mysterious obelisk, an otherworldly structure surrounded by an aura of magical energy. The trees reflected a pulsating blue light.
This is it. The portal to the Dark Queen's realm. We need to act quickly.
How do you think we enter?
You do not enter.
It was the man who knew the way. He had found them. With urgency in his movements, the man who knew the way raised his hands, invoking ancient incantations to manipulate the earth around the obelisk. The ground beneath the obelisk rumbled as it began to sink, swallowed by the enchanted soil. Roots and vines crept over the structure, attempting to conceal its presence. As he worked his dark magic, the once pulsating blue light of the obelisk began to fade.
We must stop him.
The air crackled as the man who knew the way continued his dark incantations. From the shadows emerged a towering figure in gleaming ancient armor, carrying a formidable sword that seemed to capture the moonlight. Cedrica and Oscar watched in awe as the summoned knight materialized, a legendary figure known in ancient tales, a paragon of martial skill and prowess.
Is that Sir Artorius? The legendary knight?
I've heard the tales. He was said to be unbeatable in combat.
The legendary knight had succumbed to the twisted grip of the undead. The moonlight revealed patches of decaying flesh clinging to his bones, and his movements were accompanied by the haunting creaks of ancient armor tainted by the touch of the abyss.
This is not how legend should be remembered.
Sir Artorius, the Undying, stood resolute. The empty eye sockets of his helmet seemed to gaze into the depths of eternity.
Guard the secrets. Destroy intruders.
Sir Artorius raised his mighty sword, its blade shimmering with an otherworldly glow. The air around him resonated with the echoes of countless battles fought in centuries past.
We cannot let a legend be twisted into a tool of darkness. Prepare yourself, Oscar.
Cedrica and Oscar braced themselves. Cedrica, wielding her enchanted blade, met the first strike from Sir Artorius with a burst of speed and skill. The clash of their weapons echoed through the ancient trees, each swing a dance of danger and destiny. Armed with his blade, Oscar fought alongside Cedrica, his movements mirroring hers. They worked in tandem, a duo determined to overcome the spectral obstacle in their path. Sir Artorius, relentless and swift, attacked with an otherworldly ferocity. Cedrica parried and dodged, her every movement a testament to her combat prowess. Oscar, matching her intensity, struck with precision and agility. As the battle continued, Sir Artorius targeted Oscar with a relentless assault. As the undead knight swung his weapon towards Oscar in a moment of peril, Cedrica intervened with lightning speed. Cedrica's enchanted blade met Sir Artorius's with a forceful strike, preventing the impending danger to Oscar. With a final, decisive blow, Cedrica vanquished Sir Artorius, saving Oscar from the clutches of the undead warrior. The man who knew the way, seizing the opportunity amidst the chaos, retreated into the shadows. The woods fell silent as the defeated adversaries dissipated into ethereal echoes. Cedrica, her heart still pounding from the adrenaline of combat, turned towards Oscar. In the soft glow of moonlight, their eyes locked.
We've faced the shadows together, Cedrica.
Captivated by the strength and beauty before him, Oscar gently cradled Cedrica's face in his hands. At that moment, the world seemed to fade away. Their lips met in a tender yet passionate kiss, culminating in the unspoken emotions that had grown between them. The kiss, a promise of solidarity, carried a spark of hope through the shadowy journey they still had to face. As they broke the kiss, their eyes locked once more, speaking volumes in the silent language of shared understanding.
I entered Aldrich's chamber slowly.
What are you doing here, Bronwyn?
I paced the halls and found myself here.
Lucky me.
We both scoffed at the idea that either of us would feel lucky right now.
You pace when you're troubled. What's on your mind? Besides, everything.
I found out some hard truths about my marriage. About yours. All he had to do was furrow his brow to let me know that he too had been in the dark about the setup. Henry told me that when he first came to Elisaria, he planned to turn the Celestial Isles into an empire. Duke Elegy convinced him to do it, and the key was Rose. They planted her in the forest. Henry began to woo me with a plan to tear us apart. He claims he fell in love after that, but...
Of course he did.
His sincerity was evident. Are you not devastated by this news? Aldrich looked into the fire.
I am devastated about how I behaved. A simple trick led me to make a series of horrible decisions. To destroy us. To destroy Elisaria. It is merely a way of the world that the weak are preyed on. I am just devastated that I was so confident that I was a predator, that I became the prey, that I let you become prey.
What if things had been different, Aldrich? What if our love had faced fewer obstacles? He pulled me into a tender embrace, holding me as if to shield me from the harsh realities that had unfolded.
Perhaps our love could have weathered the storms in another world. But here, in this world, we face the aftermath of choices made.
We stood in the quiet room, our embrace a bitter-sweet acknowledgement of the paths not taken, and the wounds that time had carved into our hearts. I love you.
Always.